follow me when the sky starts to change? Yeah, we won't be afraid. We'll never be the same again.
All right, guys. We got quite a few things to talk about on tonight's show because, like we saw with SmackDown, the same thing's going on Raw tonight. We are building to Survivor Series. We saw things go down between Damian Priest and Gunther throughout the show. We saw the Bloodline and Bloodline 2.0 trying to figure out exactly who their fifth member is going to be on their team. Initially, I thought it was a 4-on-4, which I think would probably work the best given the story and it makes sense. So hopefully nothing is shoehorned in because we can't really think of anybody that really makes sense to be in the team. But beyond that, we also saw our women's tag team match tonight with Liv and Raquel against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. We did get some things happen towards the end of that match where we will discuss because me and Watkins do have a few thoughts to share when it comes to that whole entire thing. We saw more tension between Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Got more stuff at Kross and Miz with the Wyatt 6. Got some things going on with Kaiser and Damian Priest within here. And then, of course, we got some tension brewing like we saw with Finn Balor with the Judgment Day still. So a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. It should be a fun show. If you guys hypothetically don't really tune into the shows that much and you come here to see us, we really do appreciate that because we'll give you a good show. We'll break it down. We'll talk about it with you guys and we'll have a good time. So that is our little rundown right now. So I'm going to switch over so you can see me and Watkins now. And also be sure to leave your feedback for the new intro. I decided to spice things up a little bit. I wanted to have like a little animated intro to get the eyes all over it. So if you guys enjoyed that, hope you guys enjoyed the music to make everything feel more alive as we prep for the show. You got something to look forward to. But without further ado, we're going to jump right into this.
With anime in our souls and thoughts of wrestling out of control, we are a duo of weebs tonight, here to give you guys the thing that we love the most, the entertainment of professional wrestling. So allow us to be the voices inside of your head as we go through the event of the evening, give our thoughts and predictions on what's to come, and provide you an experience inclusive to all you nerds out there. So be sure to grab your steel chair, yell for the table, and get put through an experience unlike any other. We are, of course, brought to you by Anime Wii Studio, and this is the Weebs of the Ring podcast. Happy Monday, everybody, and happy Veterans Day to any vets out there that might tune into our show, you know, trying to check out some new things and all that. So thank you guys so much, and ladies, of course, for the service that you guys provided for our country and all that. But we're not here to talk about you guys as much as we are here to talk about professional wrestling. So I am, of course, your world champion Watkins here to give you the lowdown for Raw heading into Survivor Series. We got War Games on the horizon. We got to set up some title matches. We got to set up some War Games matches. But I am never alone in this endeavor. For you see, we have tonight the genius of the mat, DropThisBox. Drop, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing pretty good. like I said on Friday, we're back here on Monday to talk about the show. Again, it is me and Watkins because Vash decided to take the whole Brock Lesnar schedule where he's going to show up whenever he wants. So just think of that era when Brock had the title and he just left throughout the summer and he just popped up whenever he wanted all those years ago. It's pretty much...
as long as the money's right.
As long as the money's right, Vash will come on here. So he's been missing the show lately, which is not that bad because, like I said to Watkins on Friday, it seems like a lot of good things happen when he's gone. I can't necessarily say that about everything on Raw tonight, so maybe we needed a little Vash here to maybe give us a little something that pops out more. But yeah, I'm excited to dive into this though because it is Survivor Series season. It is one of their second to last special premium live events. I'm not sure if they're necessarily calling Saturday night main event a PLE or anything. I don't know if it's just marked as a special.
I haven't heard them really mention it as a PLE. It's mainly just like a special that they've been promoting it as. So I don't really know why that's the case because I mean it is kind of PLE worthy, but I don't know. That's just me with that though. But yeah, it's very interesting because like Friday SmackDown was like really, really good from top to bottom. Like maybe a few nitpicks here and there. Tonight, I mean, it was okay. There was some good stuff in it, but like there were a couple kind of damp, wet farts going on through it. But you know, we'll get to those when we cross it. But like, I thought it was a decent show overall. You know, I mean, we'll get into the nitty gritty of it here in just a moment. But to kind of like warm up with everything, we did have like a through line story here that I did want to kind of touch base on because we had a couple segments here with like the bloodline. So like Jimmy, Jay, and Sami here. They're trying to find their fifth member for the War Games match, which me and Drop had talked about this on Friday, how we might get the possibility of a 4-on-4 War Games match, which, hey, that's cool. You know, we already got the players set. We don't have to speculate or worry about who's going to be joining. But it looks like we are getting the 5-on-5. And we had a few teases tonight. We had Jimmy trying to talk to Bron Breakker, so that was cool. We had Sami and Solo trying to recruit Seth Rollins, which we'll dive into here in just a moment with that. But I don't know if you caught this either. Jay was talking to Rey Mysterio, like in the back, like in the background. Yeah. So, I mean, we have 3 teases, but I gotta ask, like, we're gonna have to theorize here, just very briefly. Who do you think's gonna be the 5th member of the OG Bloodline for War Games?
See, the one thing I was gonna ask you is little bloopers here. So I tried looking for the document and I couldn't find it. I don't know if you could resend it.
Oh yeah,
if you could. So here's your little bloopers for that audience. But what I was gonna say, see, that's the hard thing because it's really hard for me to really figure out exactly who the member on their team's gonna be, because it's like you think about it based on how everything is being structured right now within the show. Cody doesn't really, like, I get Cody makes sense, but at the same time, it's like there's teasing another program between him and Kevin Owens. If Kevin Owens is there on Friday, because there is a chance he could potentially be suspended because of him doing the pile driver on Friday. So I kind of would be surprised if there isn't any repercussions of that, considering it is a banned move. So Cody could work if Kevin Owens is suspended, and I guess they want to keep him off for a little bit too, unless they dive into that program. Then Cody doesn't make any sense. I saw people bringing up, since we're on the topic of Cody still, about Cody being on Roman's team and KO being on Solo's team. One thing I will say against it, that it kind of contradicts KO's whole character arc, because KO got mad at Cody for working with the Bloodline to begin with. So if KO decides to take what he said and work alongside Solo, then what was the point of him getting mad at Cody to begin with? And this whole entire storyline breaking out when it came to him and Cody and Randy Orton. So that doesn't really make any sense. And then you look at the stuff that happened with Seth Rollins tonight. I'll quick thoughts on the Rey Mysterio thing. I mean, we get it, Jay. You were trying to help the best that you possibly could, but that really wouldn't make any sense. But like the thing with Seth, it was interesting considering the kind of history that he has at Roman and how you could sort of dive into that whole entire thing with how like with Jimmy and Jay making amends because they're brothers and stuff like that. But with Roman and Seth, it's a little bit different considering there's like a lot of stuff to really dig deep into. And Seth's whole character arc this year heading into WrestleMania, he didn't really want to have Roman be on the top again and just causing all this mayhem. He literally put his body on the line. You got to keep in mind the man had a tag match with Cody against The Rock and Roman, and then he had to defend his title against Drew the next night. And then he pretty much took the bullet for Cody so Cody could get that advantage on Roman so he could win the title. So Seth was pretty much, like he said before, he was the shield that helped Cody throughout the entire fight.
All while injured.
Yeah,
like all while injured
like,
too. Like the man like put his body on the line all year for all this, and you really expect him to team up with Roman. Like as cool as it would be, like especially in a story where it's just like, okay, you know what? As much as he doesn't like him, there is still that level that's like, okay, we have that brotherhood with each other, and like there's just a deeper meaning between that and like a regular friendship. But it's like you would have to be really nuanced with that, and
especially if like 2 or 3 weeks of build too.
Exactly, yeah. Like you can't just hotshot that with 2 or 3 weeks build and all that. Like you just can't. You know, you've already got people complaining that the whole Jay stuff has been rushed and all that, which I could see the argument.
I saw
but
some
like,
complaints for Friday too.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. It's like on Friday, like we saw Roman go back into his old ways. So it's like again, nothing is really set in stone. And I mean, to kind of make an early prediction, I don't see OG Bloodline winning at War Games.
No, because
I really don't.
At first, I'll admit I had the idea, but now looking at it, I'm not really too confident on it. Only because we know The Rock's going to make an appearance soon, and I would assume you want to remain strong unless he has to step in. But I feel like they might want to keep going strong or whatever. I'll see how it plays out, and then I can make a final decision. But like ending off on the whole Seth thing, obviously it makes sense for him not to go with either side. So when it all boils down, I mean, I don't really know who could really make sense as a fifth guy. And I saw some people bringing up stuff where it's like, oh, you can bring another Bloodline member in or whatever, but that's kind of like shoehorning another person in there just to be in there. There isn't really any story being thrown in there. At least with those guys, you can make a case, even though it makes sense why they don't want to be with them because of history. But at least when you had those teases tonight, it made sense considering that, okay, you know, these people actually had some part in this story. So it makes sense if you want to at least showcase a segment in the back of potentially teasing them or whatever. But some random guy that came from an indie promotion, not saying that they're bad or anything when I say that, but just shoving somebody in there just because they're family, just because you need another guy for shock value. I don't really know if that's the best decision. I saw people bring up Punk as well. The only thing I will say against that is you would have to think of a good reason why Seth would, with Punk would, I would assume, be on Roman's side. You would have to think exactly why Punk would want to get involved.
The only thing I can think of is Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
Because of how tight they are and how, you know, like we even have like in storyline, Heyman did tell Roman, hey, don't mess with Punk. Like he's near and dear to me. And like with the attack on Heyman, like Punk does have a reason to go after the OG Bloodline. It's like, hey, you guys attack Paul Heyman. He's one of my boys. Why would you do that? So like there is a reason, like there's an in for him. And plus like, and I had said this in our group chat too when I was kind of theorizing with that, because you know that was one of my thoughts. Like that was my initial thought, because it's like, okay, Punk should be coming back soon. He has nothing going on right now, you know, because a lot of speculation was, oh, he's going to be going after Gunther at Survivor Series. Well, that's not happening anymore. So it's like, okay, what does he do now? this is a good in. And plus, like,
Yeah.
on the side of, Temu Bloodline, I mean, I know you and I have both kind of gone back and forth with it about Hikuleo. He is signed with the company, and
Yeah.
that's inserting a member of the Bloodline and all that, but like, I feel like they could make that work at least on their end of it, since like, the whole thing of Solo's Bloodline is just like bringing in these guys that they originally weren't going to have because they're too dangerous. So like, they could keep playing off of that, being like, all right, fine, we do have another member, it's just this guy that we had to break out of Samoan jail or whatever. Like, they could easily kind of throw that in, being like it could even help boost Hikuleo too, coming in for the company and all that. But like, that's kind of why I'm leaning towards Punk, just because of that Paul Heyman thing. Because like, Paul Heyman still needs to come back, he still needs to be the wise man and all that, because right now with Roman, he's not ready to be his own wise man. He's not ready to like fully lead and fully be able to think clearly, So
because at first I actually thought he was going to be there on Friday, because I thought it was going to be one of those things where you saw what happened play out in the beginning, and then he was going to show up sometime in the show and actually, talk to Roman, try to like really get him to understand what he's doing right now and the kind of person that he became, so he can put him back on track again. And then you could do the thing towards the end, which I honestly, at first I thought putting the ones up would probably be a thing you could have done like closer to Survivor Series. That could have been a better placement.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Now you can't really go back in time. But like, beyond like the people that we discussed, beyond like, Punk, Cody, Seth, and all of them, is there any other person you could really think?
Yeah, that's that. I mean, I really can't think of anybody else. I mean, yeah, I really can't. I mean, again, we got the teases with like Bron Breakker and all them, but it's like they're going to be doing things on their own. They've got stuff going on. Now, I will say we are going to be getting a taped Raw next week.
Oh yeah.
And if we do get Punk, I would see that happening on a Raw. And there were some rumors, speculation, scuttlebutt or whatever, that Punk was supposed to be coming back tonight for Raw.
I saw that.
So if he wasn't there for the live show, he might be there for the taped show. So I'm just gonna say, be aware of spoilers, everybody.
Yeah.
And if you do see them, don't spread them for people, because I mean, I didn't mind the spoilers last time because it's just like, whatever. But like, we're at a moment now where it's just like, okay, you probably shouldn't, so that way it doesn't ruin the moment and all that. But just be careful out there, everybody. Be like you are with like One Piece or like MHA or JJK when those were still going. Like, make sure you use muted words, and again, respect the people that don't look at those.
The only other person I can really think of, if they do decide to venture down that route, and if they still try to push for Rollins, is if they put Bronson Reed on Solo's team. But at the same time, the match that we're getting next week with Seth and Bronson Reed, I kind of wanted that to be a Survivor Series thing, just to give them another key moment on a pay-per-view. And, I mean, they could do it, but at the same time, you saw Seth's reaction on the show, so how is he really going to back up what he said? He made some pretty valid statements, because you can't disagree with what he said. He made some valid points, because he said the next time he's working alongside Roman, he's going to want to stomp his head to the ground. He wants nothing to do with him. So that would kind of contradict what he said. So I don't know how that would work. That's why I said before, it's like, yes, we've seen it before. Yes, it's a concept that we've seen for years now, when it's like a 5-on-5 sort of thing. But I just personally felt the way that it was structured with what was going on between those four guys, I just felt like it just worked out easier that way. Yeah.
I don't know. It totally did. I mean, it wrote itself to be a 4-on-4 War Games match. And it's not like, I mean, I kind of wish I did some research before this to kind of look into it, but like, some of the group chats that I'm in, I did ask if we've seen a 4-on-4 War Games match, and they had said yes, but again, I would have to go back and do some research on it. But it's not like it's a bad concept or a bad idea. It's not like you lose anything by having it be 4-on-4. If anything, now you have more time to kind of tell a story and all that. Now you have more time to give us that melodrama that comes with the bloodline stories and all that. And I mean, again, if we're going to have the OG bloodline lose against Temu bloodline, you have enough time to write that story and to tell that story by doing a 4-on-4. So, anyways, so that's just a question to kind of speculate on with everybody. You know, we'll find out who the 5th member of each team is eventually, unless they do end up going back and be like, no, we'll just do 4-on-4. That'll be fine. It's whatever. So we're gonna move on right ahead because we had some stuff happen on Raw. We had a women's tag team title match to headline the show. We had Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill taking on Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, defending their titles, obviously. And I mean, the tag champions got over. They pinned Liv Morgan, the women's world champion. Tons of interference from like Nia, Tiffany, and all that, and Naomi. I mean, I don't really have much to say about the action.
Yeah,
because it's just like
there really isn't much to say, to be honest.
No, but like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Liv being pinned here. Like, this is becoming a trope now where it's like these champions continuously get pinned in tag team matches, and then you get the setup for their title match, and then they have the title match and they win. It's like, can we just think of something different to like have challengers, or here, better yet, let's not have our world champion take a pin. Let's have her crappy bodyguard eat a pin, because like Raquel almost did nothing for this match at all. Like, she got her butt whooped. Like, Liv, honey, you gotta find somebody better to kind of be your bodyguard. You gotta find somebody better to protect you and all that. Yeah. But I mean, again, we had tons of interference from like Naomi, Tiffany, and Nia were there for God knows what reason. You know what the
funny thing about that is?
Oh my gosh,
it's funny seeing. I get it because of what happened on Friday, but it's just funny seeing them there with Liv after that whole entire thing, that crown jewel played out. Yeah, I get it's filler. It doesn't really matter after that point, but at the same time, it's just funny to see. It's like, okay, we're on the same page now all of a sudden.
It's just like, what are we doing? Like, is it just because of Jade and Bianca? Which, I mean, if that's the case, why can't somebody just freaking beat them for the titles then? Like, I don't.
That's what I thought was going to happen tonight. Be honest, I was heading into, because if it was placed on any other part of the show, I'll be like, okay, they're retaining. But because it was the main event, I thought that there was a chance that they were going to lose, only because they teased that whole entire split, which we know is going to happen eventually. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
But I thought...
I mean, we had another tease tonight, too, like where Bianca almost hit Jade.
Oh, I didn't miss that.
And, I mean, luckily she stopped, but, I mean, I thought we were going to get more seeds with that, you know, eventually leading to them losing the titles tonight, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought they were going to end up closing off the show where they lose the titles. Maybe Bianca made the wrong move, Jade made the wrong move, or whatever. They lose the titles, and then you start going from there. But like Watkins says, you know, action-wise, there really wasn't much to really talk about in this segment. I mean, me and Watkins can sit here all night if you want us to name every single move that they did, but it's not going to really make any sense because what this was really showcasing was the build-up to the Women's War Games match, which I will come out and say it. I love all of the girls that are involved here. They're all great in their own right, but I can't admit this does feel rushed. And it's... because I get the angle they were going for, where it's like, okay, you know, you got this tag match going on. We need the story leading into that because of what we saw last week. And then you have everybody came out, and we've seen this before, you know, built into a War Games match, because obviously if the men get one, the women get one too. I have nothing against that, so I don't want people taking that the wrong way. I hope not, because that didn't come off in any bad way at all. Right. But you obviously know that, you know, every year we get 2 War Games matches, and we always look forward to them because we're always curious to see what stories are going to be told in there. How are things going to advance from all the way from point A to point B? And we obviously know that with the bloodline, but with the girls, it's a little unpredictable the sort of direction that they're going down. But yeah, for the women's side, for the faces, I'll say first, we have Io, which makes sense why she's involved, getting in the program at Liv Morgan, Bianca and Jade. Again, same thing, getting involved at Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And then we also have Naomi because of Nia Jax coming in. She has a women's championship match on Friday. So it makes sense why we have that 4. And then for the heels, Liv and Raquel, same reasons as I said. Tiffany and Nia, same reasons as I said before. So now it leaves us to our last member on each. I assume Candice is the 5th one, just because of what we've been seeing recently with her. And the 5th one's a little bit tricky because I do have a wild prediction. And I'll save that after I say this one. But the first one I had is Kairi Sane. Only because if you're throwing Io Sky in there, it only makes sense for Kairi to be involved in that, because otherwise, what is Kairi doing? I mean, it makes sense why she's involved in something like this if she were to, take part in it at all. Because we obviously know that, her and Io is a tag team. Dakota came back tonight, which was really awesome to see. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's like, and it just makes sense for Kairi to be involved here. And then my other wild, prediction, because I'm pretty confident on the Candice thing. I don't really think of anybody else that really fit that bill. I'm honestly happy Candice is involved in something. I mean, honestly, when can you say we ever saw something like that coming? I'll be 100% honest. But my other wild prediction, and I know I'm going to sound crazy when I say this, and I know we've been seeing a lot of news reports saying we don't know when this certain girl is coming back, but let's say hypothetically, me and Watkins wanted this originally before events turned out the way it did. What if Rhea does come back, but she has a whole dashing Cody Rhodes look on her that at least blocks the face? That could work. Because we have seen it before. I think JC Jane had it recently.
I think it just depends on the nature of her injury, because I know what reports you're talking about, where it's just like, oh well, it sounds like her injury isn't as bad as it originally sounded, which that's great, that's awesome, but I think just maybe knowing more of the nature of that injury, I mean, I'm not mad at that. I'm not outright dismissing that. But I do want to point out just some other ones that people have thrown out. Or at least mainly one as well that might get shut down as well. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on it too, because whatever. Some people have mentioned Bailey. And it's like, okay, I could see that because of her tie with Naomi. And I guess a little bit with Jade, because Jade never experienced Bailey during her damage control time.
Oh, you also got Io too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. The tension would come from Io. Okay, hold on, wait, hold on. We might be cooking with this. Hold on, give me a second here. Hold on, hold the phone. We might be cooking. Hold on. So if we put Bailey in with the face team, again, Naomi's cool with Bailey. I'm sure Jade kind of is, but she's probably heard stories from Bianca about what Bailey did and all that stuff. But that right there, that could start adding more of that tension, that wedge between Jade and Bianca. Because if Jade's cool with Bailey, and Bianca's just whatever, there's something right there. Because exactly. Because it's what does Jade have against her? Bailey didn't do anything to Jade, but with Bianca, there's a whole history there. And then of course the whole Io thing. I mean, what needs to be said beyond what happened at WrestleMania and before then? So there's something there that they could cook with if they add Bailey, but I don't want to write off Bailey, and I don't want to write off that Rhea thing too. Like that's not a bad shout either, because like again, yeah, she could have the mask on.
Yeah.
I think it just all depends on the real
Yeah.
life nature of the
Yeah.
injury, and if she's able to like take a
Yeah.
bump and all that.
Yeah, because I will say this about the injury itself. Like, I understand like what it
Yeah.
was and everything behind it, but it's kind of hard for me to really believe everything I see online nowadays,
Mhm.
because we get back then that, you know, Triple H, and this kind of reminds me of the whole Vince documentary we did, where they were talking about the whole curtain call thing, because back then they were trying to keep it real when it came to a lot of the things that were going on, because they wanted the audience to feel real. But then we had the whole curtain call thing where it's like, oh, okay, things aren't actually the way it seems. And the reason why I bring that up is because I don't know if they're trying to bring that feel back, even though we know it's not like that anymore, but at least make it feel like, oh, Rhea's gonna be out, but you might see her in like 3 to 4 to 5 weeks or so. Or you get what I'm trying to say. Like she's absent for a little bit just to sell the injury. Kind of like how we're seeing with like Drew right now. He hasn't been shown for a while now. We know he's fine. He's probably just chilling at home and just waiting for a perfect place to put him. But you never know if it's one of those
we're getting
things
with Randy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you never know. It's one of those things where they make it really convincing. Maybe trying to play a little kayfabe, but then you see the person come back. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I do believe the injury is legitimate. I don't know why they would really make a big fucking storyline out of that sort of thing, but there is some cases where it's like, you know, they could do some checkup. They can see if she's clear to do things or not, but she just has to play it safe. Because the reason why I brought JC Jane is because I remember she had a mask on for a while. I don't know what kind of injury she had, but she did wear a mask for a little bit to protect herself. And she was only doing certain spots in the ring. She wasn't doing anything crazy like she's doing now, because she's obviously doesn't have it anymore. But she did a couple things here or there, you know, still showcasing a couple moves in her arsenal to really play the part in her matches. So Rhea Ripley could potentially do a couple of those things. She doesn't necessarily need to do the headbutt, but it's like with Rhea Ripley, you know, she's known to do a lot of power moves, like a body slam. You guys seen a lot of Rhea Ripley matches. You know that she's very destructive. Think of Bianca when it comes to her being very destructive. A lot of her power moves as well. They're no different. That's why they would. That's why that would make a great match, because those two have unbelievable chemistry. But that's besides the point. You know, she could do what she normally does. She just has to play it safe. You know, no headbutts for now until you're 100% clear or whatever. I'm just throwing it in there. It could be a possibility. We never know how it could happen.
Again, like it's not. Yeah, it's not a bad shout. Like I'm not dismissing it at all. I think it just only it all depends on just like the nature of it. And like I'm glad you mentioned something too about like Triple H's like want to bring kayfabe back, because like there have been a few instances where like he's been good at keeping things a secret. Like you look back to when, think back to when like Tonga Loa came into the WWE. Like, at the time, like we had known that Jacob Fatu was coming, but we had no idea about Tonga Loa. Like he was a big surprise. And then you think back even a year ago with CM Punk coming back, like nobody knew until like 5 minutes before he came out. You know, so like there have been instances where like Triple H has been able to keep things a secret for us. So like the whole thing with Rhea Ripley's injury, that could be part of it. It could be something where it's like, okay, yeah, you might be a little banged up and might need to take just a little bit extra time off and all that, but we're gonna bring you back and do like kind of this injury angle thing too with it. So again, I wouldn't be mad at it. As long as like you're doing something to kind of protect the kayfabe-ness of the injury, or like the selling of the injury that happened and all that. You know,
the only other thing I will say, and this is just a personal thing, is if she does potentially come back, because if she doesn't come back, I'm not going to be upset. I'll be happy to see her again whenever she comes back. But it's like, it kind of makes me happy that me and you might be back on track again when it came to our overall predictions of how this feud would end at Saturday night's main event, where it's like, hypothetically, she does come back, they win the War Games match or whatever. Doesn't necessarily mean she has to get a title. Well, I mean, I guess in a way, maybe. But it's like, you get concluded at Saturday night's main event, which I feel like is the perfect send-off, because even Rhea came out and said that she doesn't want this feud to last until WrestleMania. Saturday night's main event makes the perfect way to end it off, and we can still follow down that path, because I was a little bit worried, like I spoke about last week, when EO had that number one contendership with Liv Morgan, but we could potentially venture down that route where EO could still have that opportunity to win the Women's Royal Rumble. That's another reason why I'm advocating for that, because that's still something I really want. I feel like she deserves it. I just want to see her get another marquee match again. I mean, she had one against Bayley this year. It was great, but I would love to see something like a Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky. That's another reason why I am advocating for it, because it felt like it was going down that direction anyway before all this shit happened. But that's just a personal thing. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if it does, I mean, hallelujah. That's something I want.
It just all depends on the writing, depends on the booking, depends on how they want to go about everything. Like, and if we hate it, hey, you're gonna hear us go off on it. If we hate it, and if we love it, hey, you'll hear us go off on how much we love it and all that. But yeah, we'll figure out these fifth members of all these War Games matches. Like, again, we're kind of just assuming this is where they're going with the women's War Games side of things. I'm kind of still like, well, I guess they're doing something different with NXT because of the whole Iron Survivor thing. So, let them cook down there. Fine, whatever. We're not going to do that War Games match, which, okay, fine. Again, cook with your Iron Survivors. That's fine. That's whatever. But let's go ahead and keep cooking here with Damian Priest and Gunther coming to kind of a war for words, mainly on Damian Priest's side, but we got some stuff to dive into with this. So Gunther comes out to the ring first, and he's saying he's trying to look forward. He doesn't want to. He's a person that doesn't live in the past. He always moves forward and is looking for the next challenger, and the next challenger is Damian Priest. And before he even gets a word in, Damian Priest comes out. He's just like, "All right, look. You're going to try to run me down, call me street trash and all that stuff, but here's the thing. Your aura, your presence has been going downhill since SummerSlam." And he mentions, like, okay, you got lucky at SummerSlam and you know it. And then he mentions Crown Jewel, about how Cody basically rolled him up and beat him very quickly. So, like, there are cracks in Gunther's armor. And Damian Priest is realizing this, and he's playing on that. And you can tell with Gunther's body language and his facial expressions that, like, Damian Priest is kind of right. And, like, in a way, Cody Rhodes kind of humbled Gunther a little bit by pinning him. And Gunther realizing that he needs to be serious. And I kind of feel sorry for Damian Priest, because I feel like he is awakening a beast inside Gunther that we have never seen before. And I feel bad for his chest. His chest is about to be welted up with, like, spots and, like, busted open. Like, Gunther's not going to let up on him at all. He is going to pull out every single thing that he has on Damian Priest, multiply it by 10, and then do it again. So I don't know, man. Like, I know there are a lot of people that are saying, "Oh, what are they doing with Gunther? Why are they booking him like Liv Morgan? Why are they doing this and that with it?" It's just like, guys,
I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah, it's like, okay, first of all, how do you progress a character? Well, one thing you can do is by regressing them. And I'm going to use the example of Deku from MHA with this. So Deku at a time, he had a character regression where, like, he kind of went back on his well, not really went back on his morals, but, like, he went so hard into them that he ended up going back on some of them, but just by doing things on his own and going out on his own, like, constantly fighting and constantly battling people to the point of exhaustion, to the point of like turning away his own like mentor and all that. And with Gunther,
Oh, that was the
it's kind of the same thing.
Yep.
You know, where it's like he's regressing a bit because like he's doubting himself.
Yeah.
He's wondering if he could actually pull it off
Something
and
we've never seen
accomplish
from him
things.
before.
It's something that like it's something that he needs in order to be better.
Yeah.
It in a way it's kind of similar to Roman's like rise to leadership, where
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
he has to learn how to be a leader. Gunther now has to realize, okay, I need to check my own ego. I need to make sure that I can just perform and all that. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the point of his title reign right now. Because, like, I was thinking about this because WWE let out a thing earlier today. I think it was like Gunther's 100 days into Gunther's world title reign. What do you think of it? And I sat there at work thinking of this. I'm like, huh. I kind of I liked Gunther's IC title reign a lot better because like he was putting on great matches. He was, you know, putting people over, you know, in those matches. Even though he was winning, he was at least making them look good. But like he was pulling out anything. Like he was winning. He won some matches with a damn clothesline of all things. Like Gunther was able to pull out so many things out of his bag to win matches and to show that how versatile he is and how dangerous he is. And yet you look at his world title reign and it's like, okay, he's had some good matches, but nothing on par with like any of his IC title matches. And especially with like how he's finished matches and like how cocky he's gotten, and just looking back at the Cody Rhodes match too, just like how dead set he was about making Cody pass out to the sleeper hold, that it eventually led to his own downfall. And we have Damian Priest now, who's a smart person, realizing this, seeing this, and be like, okay, Gunther, you're not unbeatable. You know, you are in your head right now, and this is my perfect time to strike. And you're going down right now. So I love how we're seeing this with all this going in, but I want to hear from you, Drop. I don't want to be talking everyone's ear off about this. I want to know how are you feeling about Gunther's characterization here moving forward from Crown Jewel.
I like it because it's different, because like I said, it's something that we haven't really seen from Gunther before. It makes him feel more real, because you don't want like a one-dimensional character where it's like that person's just the same person all the way through. You want them to actually have layers, so they actually feel like they're struggling with something. I mean, look at Cody, for example. You know, you saw Cody coming in strong. He was very confident. He had a lot of wins over his belt because he was pretty protected when he came back to WWE. And then when he went up against Roman Reigns, he got that first loss. And then you saw him struggling to get to the top again in order to get into the position that he is in now. And now he's the WWE champion. So it's like, you look at stuff like that, it's like, you know, Gunther, like he said, you know, the whole entire time he's been in WWE, he's been a champion for the most part. He didn't really have to struggle with anything. He was pretty much on top the entire time. But now that he had that loss against Cody, because that's what it was, that's what really derailed him a little bit, it makes him feel real, because now we're seeing a side of Gunther that we've never seen before. That's why when there's some people online coming there and saying, you know, this is weird, like, why is Gunther acting like this? Gunther should just, you know, be the typical Gunther that we normally see throughout the shows. Like, why is he acting like this? It's not bad to add layers to a character to actually give them more depth, because I enjoy seeing stuff like that. That's why not only do I like watching wrestling because of that, but that's why we like watching movies and TV shows, see how these people progress. I mean, I'll bring up Tom Holland's Spider-Man, for example. You saw that whole struggle of him in the beginning, of him learning how to be Spider-Man. Because before, you know, he's very childish, got into a lot of shit, he didn't know what to do. But then that loss with Tony really affected him, and it really made him, and I apologize if you happen to run across a Raw review and you got spoiled about Tony Stark. But
oops.
But
watch
you know,
the MCU, dang it.
But it's out there. But again, it's like you saw how that loss affected him and how he started he didn't really know what to do with himself, but then he started to rebuild himself again. He became more grounded. And then you see towards the end of No Way Home, he has that new suit. He's setting out on his own. He's on his own path now. That's pretty much what you're seeing with Gunther right now, where it's like this this side of Gunther is only going to make him more stronger, and that's honestly all you can really ask for. So at least there's something in here, so it's not just a typical Gunther match we see all the time, where it's like you got Gunther on top talking a lot of shit, and then you got Damian Priest doing his thing. It actually feels like, you know, there's something there. And I even remember saying at first that I really wasn't actually I don't remember, maybe I said this before, I'm not entirely sure, but I do remember saying at first I really wasn't the biggest fan of the build up to the match. The match was still really entertaining all the way through. But I think
which match?
What Gunther and Damian's first match, when it came to the build, was a whole bunch of shit talking and stuff like that. At least with that, you know, he's not repeating the same shit. You actually see something a little bit different. So it's something new and fresh. And I will be right back.
Oh yeah, no problem. Well, like, because that's the thing. It's like we kind of saw that with Sami Zayn too, with when that story started with him chasing after Gunther for the world title. Because like Sami had Gunther's number at the beginning of the year, and Gunther again was being very cocky, being very arrogant with his words towards Sami, and just like even throughout the match too, just like being so over the top with Sami. And it's like, okay, if anything, that's kind of where the cracks started forming with Gunther as a character and as a champion, was when Sami Zayn came back into the picture. Because like as of that time, Sami was the only person that beat Gunther, at least on the main roster, and at least this year. So Sami really did have good momentum going into that match with Gunther. But like Gunther again, he was kind of second guessing himself even against Sami Zayn, because like he knew just how good Sami Zayn was. All right. And now that he not only ate that loss from Sami earlier in the year, he had to face him again and pull out stuff to even beat him there. But like this loss to Cody, because like again, like it's not like Gunther lost because of like a big move that Cody did. It's not like he lost because of like 10,000 Cody cutters and 11 kajillion crossroads and all that. No, Gunther lost to a roll up, and like people want to be like, oh well, and myself included. Like if you guys remember, I hated that finish because I don't like that kind of finish with the whole sleeper hold and all that. But like this is why I'm so adamant about like the whole just wait and see how it plays out. You know, yes, be angry and, you know, frustrated in the moment, but then after you let those emotions out, let's see where things progress. Maybe they're going to be cooking here, and this is exactly what they're cooking. Is Gunther trying to become the performer and the wrestler that he knows he can be, the sort of level that he needs to be as a world champion. And I think going into this match with Damian Priest, we're going to see a different side of Gunther. And we started seeing that tonight. Like normally, if this was like Gunther a month ago, he probably would have attacked Priest and tried to like keep him down and all that. Hell, even after the match that Priest ends up having with Kaiser and Gunther came out, like Gunther didn't go straight to the ring. He stayed up on the ramp, and he still had like this face of doubt. And I don't want to say misery, because that's just, I don't think it was really that, but it's just like Gunther doesn't know how to really handle this, because like that's the other thing. Damian Priest isn't just some schlub. He's not like, I mean, take this with how it is. He's not some Chad Gable coming by and be like, oh, I'm going to beat you, Gunther. Like, yeah, Chad Gable's good and all that, but like Gunther can at least overpower him and kind of outsmart him and all that, outmaneuver him, I guess would be the better term. But like with Damian Priest, he can't really outmuscle him, because Priest is a very strong boy as it is. And I mean, Gunther could try to outmaneuver him, but even then, like Damian Priest has kind of upped his game since then as well. You know, he's got a few moves to kind of get out of some things and all that. So it's really intriguing what they're doing with Gunther, because again, like in order to really truly progress as a character, you do need to regress. You do need to kind of step back and like falter a little bit and have some chinks in your armor and have like this sense of I need to be better because I'm failing at some things right now. So as as this promo section continued onwards, Kaiser comes out. He comes out to kind of step up towards Damian Priest and kind of
Mm-hmm.
defend Gunther in a way. And I like how Gunther handled this, because we saw this a little bit last week where he snapped at Kaiser for talking shit on Cody for outsmarting him. But Gunther here is just like, Kaiser, you need to shut up. But I like how Kaiser didn't back down. He didn't just like stop and be like the little peon that a lot of people think he is. No, he stood up to Gunther too. He's just like, no, I'm tired of him and everybody else bad mouthing you, because Kaiser knows how good Gunther is and can
Mm-hmm.
be. And he's not going to have anybody stand up and tell him that Gunther's not good and that Gunther's not like the ring general, as he likes to say. So I want to hear from you now, Drop Down at your back. What did you feel about this edition of Kaiser coming out and talking to Gunther and Priest and trying to defend Gunther in all this?
Um, it's interesting because this was built last week when we saw Gunther in the back when they were interviewing him after Crown Jewel to give his thoughts on everything, and obviously we heard what he said about that. But then you had Kaiser saying how it was a fluke because Kaiser has this whole thing where he's just trying to stick up for Gunther because that's just been a thing that he's been doing. He's very loyal to Gunther. He
Yeah.
does everything he possibly can to back him up whenever he needs them, etc. so on. And we saw a continuation of this week where we had that whole entire confrontation between Gunther and Priest. He comes out and he starts saying a few words, but then Gunther stops him. So it's very interesting because I don't know if they're trying to build a thing where potentially Kaiser just goes off on his own and he doesn't need Gunther anymore, because that's what it seems like it to me. It seems like
Mm-hmm.
Kaiser's gonna come to a breaking point where he's just gonna flip out and may potentially attack Gunther, wherever the case may be. I don't know
Yeah.
if they necessarily need to do that, but I get what they're trying to do because they want to build some sort of tension between Kaiser and Gunther. Because
Mm-hmm.
we talked about this on Friday when it came to the tag division. Not saying that Gunther and Kaiser are part of the tag division, but we saw the whole thing break out between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, and then obviously we see something with Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, where Tommaso Ciampa and Montez Ford might come to their breaking point, and they might want to split up and do their own thing. I don't know if they're trying to play the same story out with Kaiser, where it's like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, I'm fed up with your shit. I'm just going to do what I want now, so I'm not held back, because they definitely seem to have a lot of stock on Kaiser when it comes to pushing him
Yeah.
as a singles wrestler, because when it comes to the certain feuds he's been involved in, when it comes to sort of matches he's participated in, you don't really see
Mm-hmm.
Gunther involved there. He's usually doing his own thing. So I don't know if
Yeah.
this is just another way to like lean towards that or whatever, but I don't necessarily think they need to break up Imperium more than they already
Mm-hmm.
did.
Yeah, it's an interesting story to tell, because it's like when it comes to Imperium, their whole thing is respect. It's
Yeah.
mainly respect of the mat, but like that respect also goes towards your opponent, which is something that Gunther, I mean, before he really lost the IC title, he did in a way respect the people that came to challenge him, because like his whole thing with the IC title was to make that title mean something, and he wanted challengers of all caliber, all every caliber to come and challenge him, so that way he could make that title worth something, make it mean something, make it something worth fighting for. No matter who you were going to try to challenge Gunther for that title. And he's kind of lost some of that with the world title, but it's kind of coming back here with like the story that we're telling here right now. But like with Kaiser, he's kind of gotten a little blind with that, where it's more of like, I respect what Gunther does in the ring, not everybody else, but it's what Gunther does, and it's kind of led Kaiser to be that peon and all that. And yeah, in a way, maybe like splitting from Gunther would help him. You know, maybe it's Gunther that actually initializes it. Who's just like, you know what, you need to kind of go on your own. You need to do your own thing and find out who you are, and then we'll come back and talk. And I mean, it could lead up to Kaiser, you know, earning his dues and rising up the ranks and facing Gunther for the title. You know,
Yeah.
not saying Kaiser's going to take it from Gunther. I mean, that's a whole different topic and a whole different other subject to possibly hit on if and when it happens. But like, it's an interesting story you can tell because, like, oh god, in a way, it's similar to Trick and Carmelo from NXT, where
Yeah.
it's like Trick left Carmelo in order to be more of a single star and to in order to like get that respect and earn the rankings and like earn his shot at the title, and he earned that, you know, with the whole stuff with Ilya and all that. So you could play upon that and like tell this a similar story just on a different spectrum and all that. um but yeah, I mean, I don't really see them like breaking off like most tag teams or most groups do, but I could see it where it is Gunther being like, you need to be on your own. You know, I mean, I've been going through the Mushoku Tensei audiobooks recently, and like there's a part where the main character's dad breaks up the main character and this girl that he's with because he starts realizing that the girl is being too reliant on the main character. And it gets to a point where he just thinks, okay, if main character isn't there, then she is like, she can't do anything. Like, she can't fend for herself. She can't even cook, clean, or like even survive without this guy here. So it's like, okay, transition now to like wrestling. It's like Kaiser, in a way, he can't really do anything without either the approval or fighting for the approval of Gunther. Because, like,
Yeah.
especially that last one, because, like, Kaiser puts himself through hell. I mean, look at his battles with Sheamus. I mean, on one hand, yeah, it's him trying to make a name for himself, but it also kind of tied in with his wanting to be respected by Gunther and all that. So, like, there's many avenues that can go down and lots of, like, character depths we can go through and, like, layers and all that. But, like, there's something here with this whole Imperium thing. There's something here with like Gunther and Kaiser that I'm really intrigued about, and especially on Gunther's end too,
Uh-huh.
because again, his character's going to be rising again. It's going to be developing even more and even further than what it already is. But with Kaiser coming out here talking this shit, Priest doesn't like that. He easily takes care of Kaiser, and again, Gunther doesn't go in for the attack. I mean, he starts to, but then he backs off. And this all leads to a match where Kaiser takes on Damian Priest later on. And I mean, I'm sorry, much much like the main event, I don't have much to say. I mean, Kaiser's just very solid in the ring. He's a good talent to have for in-ring work, for promo work. He's a good talent to utilize in order to enhance everybody else, but also to enhance himself. But that's a whole other thing. But like, Damian Priest pretty much makes quick work of Kaiser, and again, Gunther came out. He looked on at the ring. He didn't do anything except look kind of worried, and commentary made it a point to just notice that for us and just kind of play on that and build on that. That Gunther is kind of not that he's scared of Damian Priest, but that he's very wary of him. Um, but what do you think of, I guess, the Kaiser and Damian Priest match, or if you have anything to add with all the ramblings that I just went out on? Because, like, again, this just has so much to kind of dive into and talk about and like kind of try to comprehend to see where they're going with everything.
I mean, you pretty much summed it up with the match. There really wasn't anything to really talk about that much, like we discussed earlier with the women's
Mhm.
match. It was just leading to more things brewing with Gunther and Priest and Gunther and Kaiser. So I don't
Yeah.
really have anything to say beyond what you said. I think you pretty much covered all the bases for that.
Oh, perfect. Look at us go with all that. Cool. All right. Well, I mean, I guess with that said, let's just kind of move on to our mid card stories then, because we had a few things to talk about here.
Huh.
Going on within our mid card. Uh, I guess to start off with, we had Damage Control with a returning Dakota Kai taking on Pretty Freaking Cringe. Basically just playing off of what happened a few months ago with PFC taking out Dakota Kai because she was injured and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're back here. We're back having a match, and I mean, I might just be sounding like a broken record tonight. I mean, this was this was fine. This was a fine match. I mean, the momentum kind of needed to be with EO, so you kind
Yeah,
of
that's the
had a
whole point,
feeling Damage
really.
Control was going to win.
Yeah, that was the whole point, really. It's like you got to give some
Yeah.
momentum to EO, and then obviously Dakota Kai just came back. You're not going to have her lose her returning match. That would be silly.
Yeah.
So it's like it was just more of a momentum thing because obviously we know that EO is the number one contender for Liv Morgan's women's world championship. So you obviously need to
Yeah.
keep the contender strong before heading into her eventual title match. So like
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna sound like a broken record too when I say this too, but it's like what's the point of having PFC together still? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hate or anything when I say this, but it's not really going anywhere because if you want to make a statement, obviously you're gonna have your trials and errors, and then you'll
Mhm.
eventually pick yourself up, and then something will bloom. But it's
Yeah.
like with PFC, we've been seeing the same thing all over again. Like if it isn't Damage Control, it's Lyra with somebody. If it
Mhm.
isn't Lyra with any particular person she's teaming up with, it's like Natalia or whoever that's taking them out.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, what's really going on here? And the fact that we have a mid card title involved now, um, I'm not entirely sure if I would really center it around them only
Mhm.
because they haven't really shown anything that really pops out at you and be like, you know what, let's see one of them with this title. I mean, me and Watkins have been very vocal about Shayna Baszler's position. She definitely deserves
Yeah.
to be higher than where she is, but it's also kind of hard to see her at that spot again unless something magical happens and she has all of that momentum that she had before back in Black and Gold NXT. But
Yeah.
it might come to the point where it's like some people just stopped believing in them. It's almost like you see the same people losing every week. That's just the result you expect to see out of them. Just like when
Yeah.
Tommaso Ciampa was just beating on Pretty Deadly. You don't really see Pretty Deadly going up against the Bloodline and you expect them to win a match. Doesn't matter how good they are in the ring, but
Yeah.
presentation definitely says a lot when you're on television. They have their favorites and they have their people out there where they give them some airtime on the TV shows,
Mhm.
but it never really goes anywhere. So, I mean, it's pretty much a failed experiment. I mean, you try to do something with it. I do appreciate the effort being put into it initially, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's like it's time to move on. Especially if you have this mid card championship involved and you want it to feel special and actually have it feel meaningful, um, do something about it. Make it
Yeah.
make yourself stand out in some way. But I don't really have anything to say about this. Like you said, just gain
Mhm.
momentum for EO and give Damage Control a nice moment because Dakota Kai is back. That's honestly all it
Yeah.
really was at the end of the day. Nothing too deep.
Yeah. And I mean, if they do anything with the whole mid card title, and they involve PFC in any way, it's like the only one I would want to see even win it at it if it had to be any of the other three, if it had to be any of those three, I would honestly put it on Zoe only because like you did the whole thing with her and Trish and all that. You have the whole like kind of friend rivalry thing with Shayna, so like you could always play on that later on and just kind of have that be the crux of like PFC and all that. Like, oh, can Shayna put her ego aside to kind of help Zoe Stark and all that? But like, she's also like the younger talent and all that stuff. But like, yeah, it's just what are we doing? What are we doing with them? And if you look at like backstage segment stuff that they do, they have fun with each other. Like there is chemistry with them. It's just like
Yeah.
when you put them on TV, there's nothing. It's almost like what they were trying to do with Seth and Becky when WWE were just like, "Oh, you guys are a couple off screen. Let's make you a couple on screen." And like their on screen chemistry together was it was not that good. At least at least to me it wasn't. Like and then you kept trying to push us being like, "Oh, well they're this power couple and all that." It's just like, "Okay, get that like in real life, that's cool, but like on screen, Vince, you're not making us believe that they're together and a thing and all that." But let's just hope for the best with everybody involved with everything that they do. So let's go ahead and move on because here's something that we can actually kind of dive into. This whole stuff with the New Day. So we had Kofi in the back. Goes up to R-Truth and just basically saying, "Hey, thank you for your help a couple weeks ago with the whole stuff, going on with us, and tried to help you the other week, but Woods, I guess, didn't want to do anything with it." And I like how Kofi's saying this, and I guess he didn't know that Woods was back there because, like, you just see Woods in the background, just listening in on this casual conversation between Kofi and Truth, and this is just it's more evidence that out of all of this stuff, out of Xavier's like change of character and all that, or like his frustrations coming up and boiling over, he is not in the wrong. It has been Kofi this whole time. Kofi's the one that's trying to get involved with everybody else. Kofi's the one that's like adding people into their group without talking to Woods. Kofi's the one making the plans behind Woods' back in order to push forward and all that. He's the one that's not taking Woods' obvious cues out of here. I mean, like, Kofi is the problem, and the fact that he can't realize that is ultimately leading them to their downfall. Especially with this match that he ends up having with Pete Dunne. So I want to hear your thoughts, just like I guess on this backstage segment, really quick with him and Truth, and like leading into this New Day celebration that we're going to be getting here on Raw shortly soon.
I mean, as much as I hate to admit it, it might be only me on the show one day, or maybe Vash shows up with his Brock Lesnar schedule, but it's
Yeah.
definitely giving us more seeds planted for that eventual split. And just judging on how everything is going, I know a lot of people are making it out to be Xavier Woods because of how he came off initially when it came to the sort of attitude that he was showing towards Kofi Kingston. He had that stuff with the Final Testament trying to get into his head and everything like that. But it's like the more I think about it, I think it's gonna be Kofi
Yeah. I
because
mean, he's shown. Yeah.
because at least that's like a little curveball because you would expect the one that's really out there, really making a statement about everything. That would be the person to make the move because that's how it initially was being built up. Was is Xavier Woods going to break out and do his own thing for a little bit because he is really the only one out of him that hasn't really got that chance to really go out there and show what he's made of because Kofi Kingston got the WWE title. Big E got the WWE title. I'm not saying Kofi Kingston, not saying Xavier Woods' target is that, but he still didn't really have a chance for to break out on his own. But
Yeah.
the more I think about it, it is Kofi Kingston just because of the way that he's acting. He's not really paying attention to his surroundings when it comes to what's going on, if it's a match, if it's their attitude towards one another, and it's eventually going to lead to that big buildup, which I do remember hearing that they were going to make that a special episode of Raw when it comes to
Yeah.
that. So I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if Big E happens to be there, part of the celebration, because he is part of the New Day, regardless if he's there or not. I mean, you see him
Yeah.
on the post shows for the PLE, so obviously Big E would eventually show up, which that's something that I'm very interested to see down the line, is what his initial thoughts are when it comes to
Yeah.
all of
What's
this.
I think on some of those pre-shows he's made like quick comments about it, but like nothing really in depth with it.
Yeah.
I think the one comment I think that comes into my mind, I think he made this comment where it's just like there was never a leader of the New Day. It was always just all of us on the same page and all that stuff. And like that's just not the case here, you know? And again, like Woods is coming up with some decent plans. Like that's why like I don't want to completely write Xavier Woods off in all this because like he's trying, you
Yeah.
know. Like I know I went on my whole tirade last week about like how Kofi was setting up for Trouble in Paradise and Xavier Woods did a blind tag, and instead of like clicking in your mind, because again, like these guys have been together for almost 10 years, so you would
Yeah.
think that you know a blind tag from Xavier like that while you're setting up for your finisher, that would click in your mind to be like, oh, okay, great, bet he's gonna do his finisher on top of my finisher. So let me just finish this guy off. I'll take care of the other partner, and we'll have this match won. Instead, we saw what happened last week, and then this week with so Kofi ends up having a match with Pete Dunne because Pete Dunne comes back. He gets in R-Truth's face because R-Truth keeps calling him Butch and all that shit. And so like Kofi again gets himself involved with somebody else, which is another piece of advice that Woods keeps telling him, "Hey, stop getting involved in other people's stuff because it's not going to help you in the long run. It's not going to help us in the long run." And he's right again because during this match with Pete Dunne, which you know, again, fine match. I appreciate one thing about this match is I at least appreciate commentary putting Pete Dunne over. You know, even you know
Yeah.
after his loss with Sheamus and all that, but like they're at least still putting him over and being like, you know, even though he hasn't found success that he did in NXT, he still hasn't lost his level of intensity or uh, offense and all that. So Kofi could have had the match won.
Mm.
He could have. You know, after throwing Pete Dunne out and Xavier Woods, you know, attacking him and all that, like, he could have had a one. Instead, he goes out there and starts yelling at Woods, being like, why'd you attack him? Blah, blah, blah. And Woods kept telling him, go for the win. You're here to do a job. You have a mission. You have an objective. Do it. Win. Get that momentum back so we can just go back here and all that. And what does Kofi do? He doesn't. He just yells at Woods and tries to one up him with that. And what ends up happening? He loses. Now, after the match, Woods does try to help him, you know, even though he's kind of being a dick and being like, oh, I told you so, buddy. But, like, we see Kofi now start kind of like getting a little more physical with Woods. So, like, we're getting a lot of layers here. We're getting just a lot of this tension boiling over between Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. But, like, I'm gonna keep saying it over and over and over again. Kofi is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Woods. I mean, part of it is Woods because like his attitude towards things hasn't really been the best. I will say that. But like Kofi just can't get on board for some reason, and maybe we'll find out that reason when we have the New Day show and all that. Like that's basically what that Raw is going to be. It's just going to be the New Day show.
Mm-hmm.
But were there any layers that you see as well going into all this? Like, especially with the I keep wanting to say reunion show. It's not a reunion show, it's a anniversary show for the New Day. So like what other layers are you seeing kind of play out here? And I guess I mean we already kind of touched on where things might go, but I mean like what are you seeing with all this?
I mean, beyond what I said, I just see the obvious happening
Mm.
because I don't know. It's like really hard to like picture like Big E being the one to like come in and glue everything together again. I mean, obviously they're
Hmm.
building this tension for a reason. They don't want to just build up to a certain thing and then just have everything be okay at the end. They obviously
Yeah.
want to. I mean, that's how you get people to tune into television every weekday. Throw in a lot of drama because you always want to find out what happens next, depending on what angle they close off with.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, because I mean, we could have another festival of friendship on our hands. Like, that could be happening, or it could just be a big old reunion. And if it is with like the New Day not breaking up and because of Big E, it should be because Big E is coming back to competition.
yeah.
Like, you can't just have Big E coming in and be like, I'm the glue to hold everybody together. Herper derper derper der. Like, that's cool, but like Big E has to be involved physically now with the New Day if that was to happen, to just kind of solidify again we're better as a unit, as a three-way unit, and not just a two-way unit, because two-way unit hasn't really been working out for the past like 5 years now, hasn't? Or 4 years? Because like Big E, he won the title during COVID times, right?
Um, I think so. I can't remember.
I can't remember. It might have been like the tail end of like the COVID era. Yeah, it might have been. So like that's been at least like 2 years, because he got it from Bobby Lashley. So at least like 2 or 3 years, something like that. Anyways, that's besides the point, I guess. But like, do you have any other comments to make about the whole New Day story playing out?
No, I shared all my thoughts.
All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to a segment that uh I don't know if you've seen before, but I know I definitely have seen before. Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins basically have a big old pull apart brawl. Leads to a match next week.
See, that's the thing. I would have saved that for Survivor Series, like I spoke about earlier, because it's
Yeah.
like you obviously want to give Bronson Reed his moment, and sure, he could still get a moment next week. I mean, there's probably already spoilers out there showcasing what happened, but
Yeah.
it's like I would have personally just saved it for Survivor Series just so they get another PLA match, or they don't have to worry about rushing through certain things, because at least when it's a PLE, you don't have to worry about any segments in the back. You just let the matches play out,
Hmm.
and they just end whenever they end. And you could have had, like, a good moment for Bronson Reed there, because I would assume if they were to have a second match, that Bronson Reed would have to come on top this time if they wanted to do another match at like Saturday night's main event or something along the lines of this. But like,
Yeah.
this is going to be a common theme with what I have with the next segment too. But it's like I would have just personally saved it. Well, at least this match, I would have personally saved it for Survivor Series. And same
Hmm.
thing with like the pull apart bras. I mean, sure they're cool every so often when it counts, but sometimes it gets like really overdone, and you don't really feel anything out
Hmm.
of it. I mean, it even comes to the point where it's like, okay, we're hitting all these super crazy moves, and sure, it's effective after a while, but at the same time, it's like seeing a whole bunch of people, just getting thrown in there and just,
Hmm.
I mean, we basically seen it before. We saw it to their build up initially to their crown jewel match. So it's
Yeah.
like, why would we venturing down the same route again? Like, why can't we switch things up? And
Yeah.
I don't know, just like just judging on stuff that we saw with Seth tonight. I mean, I don't even know if I can really say that I could really see it ending clean or
Yeah.
dirty, or honestly even being a match in general, because of the stuff
See,
that
I was gonna
happened with
mention that.
Bloodline as well, because it
Hmm.
was it was almost like it's like a common thing with Hurt Syndicate on AEW,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, if you deny being with us, you become an enemy. Swerve
Yeah.
didn't want to work alongside them. They tried to give him their business card. Swerve didn't want to do it. He wanted to go off and do his own thing that he's currently doing right now. Kind of like the same thing with Bloodline. They try to recruit you. You don't want to work with us. Okay, you're enemy now.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if you have like Seth and Bronson have a match, and then you just have Bloodline coming out because it's like, okay, you know, you don't want to work with us, Seth. Now you're on our hit list now. We give you a chance to come in and help us. I mean, it's just something I can personally see play out. Would it be cool to actually see them have a match? Sure, but again, just based on what I saw earlier tonight, I just have this weird gut feeling I'm going to see Bloodline next week. Because you saw Jay talking shit that one Friday. He didn't have to show up. He showed up. And then you saw him lose his title that week. And then that's pretty much what led him to where he is now. So, very same thing. So, a similar thing could play out with Seth Rollins. You never really know. I'm hoping I'm wrong. But at the same time, it's honestly, I'm leaning more towards there's some shenanigans being played out.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in the same boat too. I don't see this match having a conclusive winner. Whether it actually even gets started, that's besides the point as well.
Yeah.
So it could still get pushed to Survivor Series, and I mean, if Bloodline do get involved, I mean, like we were saying earlier, we're like kind of speculating the Fifth Men and all that. It's just like, I mean, that could be a way in, but it's like, again, you would kind of be rushing the whole Seth and Roman reconciliation and all that, and like that's not something I personally would want to see. But like to kind of touch on like the pull apart brawl thing, like it's fun for the people that are in the arena, because that's fun to see. Like, you're seeing a bunch of action, you're seeing a bunch of people being thrown around and all that. But like when you're sitting at home watching this each and every week, and especially when it's Bronson Reed, because Bronson Reed segments seem to always end in a pull apart brawl.
Yeah,
it loses its luster. Like Drop was saying, it's like it's the law of diminishing returns. You keep doing it, it's not going to mean much anymore. So it looks like, can we do something different?
Yeah, it's kind of like how we spoke about the pile driver on Friday, where it's like, it's a move that's been banned in WWE. You don't normally see it. I don't even have people come out and say, oh, well, that pile driver didn't look any good or whatever. It's not the point of it looking good. It was the whole shock value they were trying to go for, where it's like, KO's pulling this off on Randy. Okay, it's adding layers to what Triple H said, where he's a dangerous man and he's pretty much doing whatever the fuck he wants without any like worry. So it's like it's the same thing with this. It's like, oh, when you do a pull apart brawl, I would personally do it where it's like it's needed, or it gets the crowd's attention for what happens. Like, think back at John Cena and Brock Lesnar when they had that brawl inside of the ring when it was building up to their match, and then John Cena, you just got that one shot of John Cena where he had like a bloody nose, and then he headed right back in and started attacking Brock Lesnar all over again. It's like stuff like that, for example, where it's like you see that intensity in it. If it's just the exact same thing, it's just like, it's honestly, the way I look at it now, it's almost like the bloodline and the bloodline segments that we got towards the end of the show, where it's like a beatdown ensues. They put up the ones towards the end, if it's Roman or if it's Solo's team, putting the ones up towards the end. It's almost like that, where it's like we see it so much, it's kind of taking away that feel of it.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it all works for like the video packages and all that. It's just like
probably one of the main reasons why they do it.
On the weekly watch. Yeah, it's just like on the weekly watch, it's like, come on.
Especially when we review it now, it's not like we're just watching it and going to bed right after. Like, we're actually making content out of it now. So now we are looking at it with a different set of eyes. Yeah,
and it's just like, can we do something more so we can talk about it more? You know. Yeah. But hey, you know what? We'll talk about something more. You know, we'll talk about something way more, because another match that is kind of happening a lot sooner than a lot of people probably thought. Bron Breakker and Sheamus are going to be facing off against each other for the IC title match next week. Now, how this got set up is actually kind of interesting, kind of intriguing, if you will. So Bron Breakker, You know what? I'm going to sound like another broken record too tonight with this. Bron Breakker, the Intercontinental Champion, was on Speed. Bron Breakker, the Intercontinental Champion, is in the Speed tournament to earn the Speed title. On Speed, on Twitter, which is 3-minute matches, but whatever, that's whatever. But Bron Breakker as the IC champion has barely done anything on Raw since winning back the title. So Bron Breakker as the IC champion is finally on Raw, and he's in a backstage segment. Okay. Talking shit on Sheamus. Okay. Because, hey, their Speed match ended in a tie because time ran out. You know what? Makes sense with those two, especially on a show like Speed. Get them both off of that because why? you know? But I guess the why is to set up this match. So, like, Sheamus hears Bron Breakker talking shit. And he's just like, all right, fine. You reminded me of myself as, when I came into the WWE, when I won the title from Cena. I was very arrogant, very cocky. But hey, put your money where your mouth is. Put your title up against me next week, and we'll see how tough you are. And I mean, Bron Breakker agrees because Bron Breakker wants to destroy people, but it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Because like a lot of the speculation was leading for like, okay, Sheamus is gonna be built up for Bron Breakker for like Mania season, and then that's when Sheamus is finally gonna win that IC title during Mania season. And I'm not saying he's going to win next week, because I would probably be livid, because at that point, it's just like, what are we doing, Bron Breakker? Like, you get the IC title twice, and then you lose it twice, within the span of, 6 months, roughly? So it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing here with all this? I don't know, maybe I'm just being Mr. Negative Nancy over here, but it's just like, I expected more, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I would have saved this for Mania season because it's just the perfect opportunity to do it, because obviously this has been an ongoing story with Sheamus for quite some time now. I mean, ever since he first came in contact with Gunther, he's been on this quest to eventually win the Intercontinental title, because that was something that he personally wanted to add so he could become a Grand Slam champion. That's the only title left that he's never won, because he's been a WWE champion. He's won, I believe he actually won a Royal Rumble before, if I'm not mistaken. He's had all these different kind of accolades and stuff like that, but the Intercontinental title is the one thing he wasn't able to pursue. So it's like him getting that opportunity against Bron Breakker now with the title. I'm not necessarily sure how I feel about that. Yes, we have seen them in the ring before, but we're leaning more towards the whole fact that now Bron Breakker is the IC champion, and now you're having a title match next week. It's almost, in a way, taking away the feel of when they eventually have that match again around WrestleMania, because you could have built a whole story around this, especially if you wanted Bron Breakker to go through a couple people, and then around Mania season, you start building that program with Sheamus, and you could add a lot of intensity to it. You could have Sheamus getting that feel-good moment, which still could very happen. But at the same time, I feel like this is just way too early to see. And I don't want to be blinded and say that, oh, we're still getting a great match. Of course we are. Look who's involved.
Yeah.
But it's just the placement of it. It's like, do we necessarily need to do this right now? Because there's of other people on the roster, if you really wanted to do something with Bron Breakker besides the Sheamus, you could have had, now I'm saying that, I'm not really thinking of names, but basically what I'm trying to say, it's like, you could have figured out another direction for Bron Breakker to venture down until he eventually led to Sheamus. And keep in mind, this is just fantasy booking at the end of the day, so nothing was concrete saying that Bron Breakker was 100% getting Sheamus at WrestleMania. It just made sense because WrestleMania is always about having a WrestleMania moment, like Cody did this year when he won the WWE title. He finished the story And like with Bayley as well, when it came to her first singles match at a WrestleMania, without it being some
Yeah.
sort of tag match or a triple threat or whatever, it was actually a one-on-one match at EO. WrestleMania is always about making special moments and stuff like that. And that would have been a great moment for Sheamus. Could it still happen? Yes. It's just the placement that WWE does sometimes, where it's like they give you a match too early than you really
Mm-hmm.
want it. It kind of takes away the feel for it, but at the same time, you could work up to something with it. But at
Yeah.
the same time, it's like it just the pace placement itself. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of us getting Bron Breakker and Sheamus next week. Am I going to enjoy the match? Like I said, sure, but it's like the placement just seems off to me, honestly.
Yeah. And like this is one of those moments, and kind of a little bit in the next segment that we'll talk about too. It's one of those moments where I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what exactly are you guys cooking? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's deterring me away, but it's making me question a lot. Like, what are you cooking? Like, the smell's kind of fine, but there's something weird in the smell. Like, what's going on here? What are we doing? And especially with like Bron Breakker, because like again, like the IC title has not done too much since he's won it, and even since he's won it with against Sami Zayn, like back at SummerSlam. Like, I mean, you had the moment with Jay, which was great. You know, gave Jay a moment to finally like put some sort of pin in his solo run and all that. But like, what else is Braun Breaker's IC title reign? Like, what is that legacy that he's going to be leaving with that title? I mean, just what are we doing? What are we doing with all this? Is my question. So
I mean, if they're
I
cooking
don't
up
know.
something that I'm not aware of, I guess I'll see where it goes. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
stick on how I feel as of right now, and I'll see what happens next week. Because based on what we've seen,
Hmm.
this isn't really showing us that there's gonna be any interference. Somebody's gonna get involved, trying to
Yeah.
screw over Sheamus, whatever. I mean, based on what we saw tonight with Kaiser, even though Gunther said that Kaiser didn't handle Sheamus, I don't know if it really makes sense for Kaiser to get involved with Sheamus just because of that tension that was brewing between him and Gunther. I don't know if it
Yeah.
necessarily makes sense to really throw Kaiser in there and screw over Sheamus again, because again, we've seen that so many times. Why do we have to keep going back to the same thing? And again,
Yeah.
me and Watkins aren't saying that this is going to be a bad match. I mean, look who's involved. They're going to give
Oh
you
yeah.
a
No.
great match. These two guys do not put on bad matches. They're not known to put on bad matches. It's just that
No.
whole feel. And when we get to this
Hmm.
time of the year, we try to brainstorm and figure out exactly what sort of direction we're going to lead heading into the WrestleMania season. And this was
Yeah.
sort of on a lot of people's lists that I've noticed. Like a lot of people make little, they pretty much brainstormed on little lists. A lot of people were saying stuff like this, what could happen. This
Hmm.
is the one thing I can't say. I do not know what they're doing with this. Like, there's nothing I
Yeah.
can really predict of, oh, this could potentially be an outcome besides obviously Bron Breakker retaining the title.
Hmm. I mean, the only other thing I can think of, and this is just a shot out of the dark, and I don't know how or what they would do with it, or how they would get there, I guess. But I mean, this could be leading up because there's another person who has never won the IC title, who's going on a final run next year.
Oh,
That man being John Cena. Maybe leading to that, but
uh,
it's like, why? You
yeah,
know, because like.
I get it.
Because at that point, like Sheamus and John Cena are having kind of a similar story with that, with the IC title.
Yeah,
But it's like, again, do we go down that route?
yeah,
Like, because
but
I wouldn't want Braun Breaker to lose to Cena.
no,
And again, like even if he loses to Sheamus here, it's like, okay, then really what are we doing with Bron Breakker unless he's
Yeah.
gonna immediately take the title off of Gunther, you know?
The only thing I would
I
say
don't know.
towards that is if I had to
Yeah.
choose a prediction, if I had to choose between getting to number 17 or IC title, I probably would choose one. I would probably
Yeah.
choose getting to number 17 only
Same here.
because I don't know if I would want to see Cena winning multiple titles next year when in reality all that really matters is that one last
Mhm.
hurrah with a world title, which um like reports been saying, management's high and Cody. I mean, it's obvious how you see it. I don't necessarily see him having a match for Cody. I mean, he could, but at the same time, doesn't really make sense for him to. Gunther is kind of like the perfect person for him to really go up against when it comes to like
Mhm.
that guy that really stands above all and makes it seem like it's impossible to really go through him. And that definitely fits John Cena pretty well when it comes to going up against people like that. I mean, I definitely expect him to get that 17 this year, but
You know what would be crazy?
yeah,
And I kind of want to look this up too, really quick as well. What would be really crazy, and I'm not saying this is what can happen or what will happen. What if John Cena wins the Royal Rumble?
yeah. See, I saw that on a lot of people's lists too, because a lot of people are saying, could he win the Rumble or Chamber? And there's a part of me that
Yeah.
could see either one. Even though I am in favor of giving the Royal Rumble to somebody to establish them as a top talent, so once they win
Yeah.
the Rumble and they have their match at Mania, if they lose or win, at least they're still in that spot and they can continue building themselves from there. Like if I were to use somebody for example, I'm not saying they're going to win this, but let's say hypothetically there was a storyline playing out with Carmelo Hayes and it made sense for him to win the Royal
Mhm.
Rumble and go to WrestleMania to win the big one. And then even though he
Yeah.
lost, he's still in that top spot because that's what a lot of people expect him to be once he's out of the mid card position. He's going to be involved when it comes to a lot of those main eventers around there. I'm more in favor of like seeing newer talent get built from the Royal Rumble,
Yeah.
but going off of Cena's whole retirement tour, since this is a thing that a lot of people know is going to be a very big storyline next year because this is one of the top guys that was in Cody's position, that was in Roman's position all of those years ago. That was pretty much the top guy when me and Watkins were growing up. Essentially,
I mean,
John Cena was
where's
the
my?
top. John Cena was the
Alright.
top guy.
I got my Cena jersey.
Yeah.
Like I still the Chain Gang one. Like
Oh
that
wow.
should take you back. Like that.
So
That's
it's
how
like
long. Like that. I mean, mm,
So it's like
yeah.
it could happen. Like he could win the Royal Rumble. He could win the Chamber. Um, Either one really. Like
Yeah.
I will say I could sort of see him winning either one next year. There's part of me that's leaning towards the Chamber a little bit more,
Hmm.
but I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna have to see how things start off in
Yeah.
January because I would assume once Raw is on Netflix, he's gonna be there all the way through. He's not gonna be taking any breaks, whatever, because he says
Hmm.
he's gonna be making a lot of appearances throughout the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. I think he said like third. Like at the time, it was like 30 something appearances. Which I mean, when you look at their calendar and all that, I mean, 52 weeks in a year. I mean, if you're doing at least 30 of them, that's at least like a little over 2/3 of the year, I think, if my
Yeah,
Steiner math is correct.
it's pretty much from January all the way till December. So throughout that spread,
Yeah,
he'll be showing up. So I mean, that
yeah.
could definitely factor in this some way. We'll just have to see whenever. So pretty much like whenever Cena cuts that first promo uh
Hmm.
on Raw when it's on Netflix, I 100% expect him to be there. That's going to be a loaded show. That show itself is going to be
Oh
a
my God,
PLE
yes.
because I believe they're also booked to be in a stadium.
I think so too, yeah. So that's
So
going to
it's
be a big show, and it's really going to be telling with how the year's going to go by and all that.
yeah. I mean, if
Yeah.
I were him, I would
But
book my year to win a world title. But
Oh, same here. Like I would want that number 17 and all that. So
yeah,
yeah. We'll wait and see what happens with that.
yeah.
But somebody who didn't wait and all that. Oh hey, human favorite Scooby Doo character. We will talk about Scooby Doo at another time, good sir. But I appreciate you coming out, Human Spider. We'll talk about Scooby Doo at another time. But speaking of Scooby Doo and spooky things, actually, thank you for that wonderful segue. You get a segue point for that, Human Spider. But with all the spooky things going on, even though we're out of Spooky Month, we still got to talk about the Wyatts because they're pretty spooky as well. And Karrion Kross and his boys with the Final Testament, they're somewhat spooky, but not really. But they gotta deal with the Wyatts, and they gotta deal with the Miz because the Miz kind of got them in this predicament with the Wyatts. He's got to produce the Wyatts so that way Final Testament can take care of them for what they did to Paul Ellering. And we have Miz in the back, and he stopped on his way to talk to Adam Pearce because apparently he wants to try to get a leave of absence from Raw to kind of just soak in everything, kind of like reflect on his own life, protect his family and all that, and protect his own career. But Karrion Kross not having any of this. We're gonna break your legs because you're not producing the Wyatts. And they take him out to the ring, and they're about to do it, and the Wyatts come out, and apparently this was the whole big ruse with the Miz coming back into the ring with a steel chair, hitting Bo Dallas, and then Final Testament just destroying the Wyatts. I don't know how to really feel about this because so the whole crux of this is that apparently the Miz this was all part of their plan. This was all all according to Keikaku.
Yeah, it was a ploy.
But it's like he was kidnapped last week, supposedly like tortured or whatever with the Wyatts, because I mean, just from the way that video segment left off last week. But it's like we're led to believe that like Miz is basically going to be no selling what happened to him last week, all for a ploy to get back at them. Like that's what's kind of taking.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Let me see something. All right, guys. So for anyone that is watching right now, I don't know if it's different on my end. I mean, my bar is still showing my internet's on. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be connected. Let me refresh Twitter. Okay, I refreshed Twitter. Internet's perfectly fine. Watkins froze. So I will DM him on Twitter. Let's see. All right, I just messaged him just to let him know. But for people that are watching right now, I do apologize for what happened, because we were giving our thoughts on our last segment when it came to the whole Karrion Kross thing with the Miz and the Wyatt 6. I just reached out to Watkins to let him know that he froze. So he'll be coming back. Probably saw my DM on Twitter. So he should be coming back. You hear his little jingle when he comes back. But things like this happen sometimes when you do a podcast, you record a video, you have those little glitches or bloopers that happen. I mean, there's times when I'm recording a video and for some reason I check off the audio and I'm talking for 10 to 20 minutes and no audio comes up, and then I'm like, oh fuck, I was trying to make a video for this week and now can't do it. But to share my initial thoughts on like the whole Wyatt 6 thing that happened, waiting for Watkins to come back, and I will open up Twitter just if he responded or not. But pretty much just to give my initial thoughts on this. So we obviously have this whole storyline being played out with the Wyatt 6 and the Final Testament with Miz involved. And we know the Wyatt 6 typically goes after people that did somebody wrong. And we know Karrion Kross, when it comes to him and everything, he tries to manipulate people to venture down a route that they don't normally go down. When it comes to, okay, you gotta figure out who you truly are, that sort of thing. So this is just like another ongoing story when it comes to the Wyatt 6 and the Miz. Again, with this, it's like, okay, using Miz as bait to lure in the Wyatt 6. You got a little thing happen between them in the ring where the Wyatt 6 come in there. The Final Testament get involved. They start beating on the Wyatt 6, and then you have it end with the Final Testament pretty much standing tall when it came to the beatdown, but at the same time, you got Uncle Howdy just laughing like he usually does when it comes to these segments that he's involved in. You know, you get his ass beat to a pulp, and he's just laughing hysterically. That's essentially what you got here. Again, it's like, where are we really going with here? Like, is this going to lead to some sort of elimination match at Survivor Series? Because we haven't gotten a elimination match at Survivor Series for quite some time now, because War Games has been a thing for Survivor Series for quite some time now. So we just been sticking with that. So it's like, are we getting an elimination match between these two? Does it really fit to be on Survivor Series considering how the build feels right now? But if you were to think of some sort of plan to do with them, would you put them on an elimination type match? It could work potentially down the line. I mean, I'm not entirely sure, because I'm not like super interested in this stuff, of being 100% honest, but it at least did something to at least give, I guess, a little something to the Final Testament to like make them stand out in some way, shape, or form. But at the same time, it's like, you know, what's the game plan here? Where is this going to lead up to? That's basically what it is. But I mean, my whole thing with the Wyatt 6 right now, and I'm gonna refresh my DMs on Twitter to see where Watkins is. But my whole thing with the Wyatt 6 right now, to be 100% honest, I liked it at first when they came in. Their whole presentation at first was great. The way that they ended off that Monday Night Raw, it was great. It was showing them the kind of threat that they would be. But looking at what they were doing with Chad Gable at first of American Made, okay, it's going somewhere. Then eventually, you know, a lot of brawls, sneaking in the ring, taking out Chad Gable, taking out not the Alpha Academy. Who am I thinking of? Shit, I'm drawing a blank. But you get what I mean. American Made, everybody involved in there, you know, taking them out and then moving on to this. I mean, I really want to know, like, where exactly this is heading. Like, what's the end game here? What is really going to play out with these guys? Because it's really hard for me to get invested when it comes to the sort of next move that these guys are really going to do. Like, yes, they're involved in a different program than where they were with American Made. But it's like, at the end of the day, you know, where is this really going to lead to? Because to me personally, it almost feels like the Wyatt 6 is sort of not as interesting at this point. Those are my initial thoughts on it. I'll try to reach out to Watkins to see where he's at. Because going on here. Might be messaging in Discord, so I'm gonna open it up on a different browser just to see what he's saying. Okay, so I got a message at 2 minutes ago saying that his internet just crapped out. So I don't know if he's resetting the router or something along the lines of that. But you know what? I'm gonna use this as a point in the show. Try to get the right music on here. So as we take our little intermission here, and again, I apologize for how things played out here with the whole internet thing. I mean, it happens, like I said, because that's just get shitty. You get and internet problems. I get them all the time. I get them every so often. It happens. But just to chime in, like, what was your personal thoughts on this segment when it came to what happened here? I mean, I don't really have that much to really say about this segment as a whole, because there really isn't anything for me to really pull apart, because we always see this thing with the Wyatt Six where it's like another sneak to a ring, another beat down. It's almost like they're just trying to find something for them to do, and I guess going after Karrion Kross made the most sense at the time. But I'm going to wait for Watkins to come back. I'm gonna message him asking if he's resetting his router. Yeah. Why 6 is worse than Retribution? That's a funny thing. When Retribution was a thing, that was during the pandemic era, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was around the time where I took a break from wrestling, because around that time I didn't really care for WWE at that point. I think it's because I fell out of love with it. Not necessarily saying I stopped caring about it as a whole, but I think it came to a point where it's like, you know, you remember that 2019 era of WWE. It was just all over the place. You know, every Monday Night Raw you were watching, nothing really interesting was happening. It was just a whole bunch of shit thrown together just to put on a show, and scripts being broken apart from left and right. So I think that was around the time where I took my break. So I didn't necessarily see everything that happened with Retribution. I do know that Retribution was something that they pulled off and it was not successful. And I know that it's a common thing that people do bring up when Retribution gets talked about. It's like, yeah, they tried to do something with it. It failed. It was really uninteresting. So I know that was definitely around the time where I took my little break. So I didn't necessarily know 100% everything that happened with them, but I do know that I didn't really care about it that much. But I know that was definitely around that time where I took my break, because I mainly just stopped because, like I said, nothing was pulling me in, and I came back around 2022, around the time when Roman was having that match at Brock where it was title versus title, and I've been watching ever since then. I've been watching the shows. So, yeah. So Watkins says that he is in the middle of resetting his router. Just to give you guys a quick little update. He is in the middle of resetting his router, and he's listening in by using his data. So he will be back on here shortly. So if you guys have... I feel sorry for you. No, it's all right. You know, shit like this happens every so often. I mean, I haven't necessarily had this problem on the show before. The only thing that ever really happened is the whole thing where it's like, there's sometimes I couldn't make it because I had work or something else happened. So I haven't necessarily experienced it before. If it happens, I'm sure that day will come. It eventually does come. Oh, you're referring to around that time of like watching wrestling all those years ago. Oh yeah, yeah, it definitely was, because I mean a lot of it's drawing a blank really, because there was just a lot of shit that came out around that time that I didn't really care about. Like I still remember that whole thing where it's like they were trying to dump dog food all over Roman's face. I never really understood why they did that. Oh yeah, he's the big dog, you know, let's feed him dog food and shit like that. Like why would we put stuff like that on television for? It doesn't really make any sense. Like we're at the point where we're growing up, we're mature, we don't really care about a lot of that childish shit. Like why are we still doing this at this day and age? Like why are we doing that stuff? And then of course I remember the whole thing that happened with Seth Rollins and The Fiend at that Hell in a Cell, and I remember how it was a Hell in a Cell match, and you usually know when a Hell in a Cell match is a thing. There's no disqualifications. You just go out there, just like how CM Punk and Drew McIntyre did, and you go to war. You destroy each other. And then because Seth Rollins was using I believe he's using a mallet in there. Can't remember 100%. But you had him go in there using that, and then all of a sudden that causes a disqualification. It's a Hell in a Cell match. Why is a disqualification a thing in there? You need to let the boys go loose and just destroy each other. Doesn't make any sense. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's just, I'm happy I got back when I did, because there was still that part of me when I did come back in 2022 around that WrestleMania season where I still had those certain feels when it came to certain things I didn't really like before. A lot of the stuff that went on with the Bloodline I got invested in, and then when Cody came back, when Seth Rollins was looking for his mystery opponent, I really liked that because I really liked the whole build when it came to Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes' rivalry. I think that's what really drew me in that year. You had those 3 matches with Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, and then you had that match at Hell in a Cell that I became a fan of. Cody got injured, came back later that year at the Royal Rumble. He won it, Rhea won it, and then you had everything play out at that WrestleMania that year. I think everything is back on track again now that Triple H is involved. Sure, we have a couple hit or misses every now and then, but you know that's just how it is. Not everything can be perfect all the time, and I'm just glad things are down the direction it is, because it's definitely a lot more enjoyable and it's a lot easier to digest than it was all of those years ago. On back to Watkins. Just to keep you guys informed, Raw is taped next week, so whatever we saw tonight, there was another show that was taped right after. So be aware of spoilers online, just in case you run across some. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to avoid them nowadays, because the second you go on X or you go on TikTok, whatever, you're going to see something show up in your news feed. So I know that's kind of difficult to avoid at that point. But just be aware that Raw is being taped next week. And also, just to give you guys a quick rundown of our channel, just in case there's some new viewers here that happen to stumble across our content. We are a new wrestling podcast, so obviously we don't have that many viewers on our channel. I mean, that's kind of how it is when you start playing the game. It takes a little bit to build an audience, so we still have maybe a good 2 to 3 people that tune in our streams, but eventually, as we keep pushing forward and we keep putting a lot of work towards this channel, it'll eventually pay off and it'll become its own thing. It's all about the grind at the end of the day, so we'll eventually get to where we need to be. But pretty much, I'm DropThisBox, just in case people happen to come across here. I I voice my opinion when it comes to certain shows, if it's the PLEs, if it's the regular shows. And I like to be honest when it comes to how I feel about certain things. I don't really like to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to be overly aggressive or anything, but I will give you my own thoughts on things when it comes to it. When it comes to certain things I need to give my piece on. But for the most part, I keep it pretty tame and I keep it going. So that's really good. Right? Dun, 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 dun. I do know for sure when it comes to the time codes, we might have to dive a little deeper in here to have a little intermission time code so we can get back on track when it comes to this show. Just in case there's some viewers that happen to come on to the show when it comes to the time code. If you want to see our thoughts on certain things that we cover, we will have a time code just in case you want to skip all over this so you don't hear me rambling throughout the entire thing until Watkins gets back. You could obviously, skip over this once we add the time codes in later, so you don't have to hear all of this. You could get back on track and you can hear Watkins' thoughts on the whole Wyatt 6 segment. I gave a couple of my thoughts on here. I'll bring them up again if I have to. So an update on Watkins, he did say it's going to be a lot longer. He doesn't know what's going on. So we'll see what happens. I'll reach out to him to see what's going on with the internet. Unless by chance, if things are tough on his end, I will eventually I will ask him if he wants me. Drop my final thoughts on the show and close out, but we'll wait and see what happens with that. It all depends. But again, like I said, things like this happen every so often, so I do apologize for the little thing we had going on here. Right. So Watkins did tell me to go ahead and do final thoughts and all that. He says his timer's still going so he can add time codes later. Okay. So like I said, we will add time codes for this right here. So all this you're hearing right now, you can skip over it later. But you already heard my thoughts on the whole Karrion Kross thing with Wyatt 6, so I'm just going to move on. So pretty much that is the show for Raw. So what is my overall thoughts when it comes to this episode of Raw? Well, when it comes to certain things I liked, I mean, I did like the whole headline story that we discussed earlier when it comes to the 5th member of the Bloodline, because even though I spoke about earlier how I honestly feel like it's just best to keep it a 4-on-4, obviously they want to do it a 5-on-5. But very curious to see where that leads to when it comes to potential members being added. They tease Seth, but I don't necessarily know if Seth is going to work alongside them. So we'll see what sort of direction that heads down. I do like the tension being built between Damian Priest and Gunther. It adds layers to Gunther's character that we never seen before, so that was really cool to see. Bronson, Reed, and Seth, I'm hoping something comes out of it next week. Hopefully we get some sort of match announced for Survivor Series. If not, I could potentially see what leads to the what could possibly lead with Bloodline next week, if they potentially get involved in his match or not, because I'm starting to have that feeling with me. But other than that, really, those are my final thoughts on Raw. Those are how I personally feel about everything that happened. That's basically what really stood out to me. Obviously, we'll dive into things deeper because a lot of the stuff that we saw built on from tonight is going to build into Friday. So we can definitely dive in a little bit deeper to see exactly what sort of things get addressed there. But now I'm going to wrap up the show, and I'll put on the little music here so you guys could listen to it. No, not that one. Even now I'm starting to do bloopers. But honestly, those are my initial thoughts. So I want to thank you guys for taking your time out of your day to listen to the Weebs of the Ring podcast. If you did enjoy what we had to say today, why not do exactly as I say right now? We are known as Weebs of the Ring. So be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. We're usually active on Twitter the most, so that's the one I'm definitely going to push for, is Twitter, because we're usually on there all the time, and we're even putting out tweets for tonight's show. We do the same thing with AEW, NXT sometimes, the PLE, SmackDown. So be sure to follow us on our Twitter, our Instagram. Those are our socials that you could really find us on. Be sure to use the hashtag Weebs of the Ring so you can find us on Twitter when it comes to certain things that you want to say. If you want to interact with us any sort of way, that would be awesome. Twitter growth has been super freaking awesome lately, so really appreciate all the support. Really hope you enjoy that whole intro that I put together for the guys, because I wanted to spice things up a little bit, make things interesting. So be sure to interact with us and follow us on there if you have any extra things you want to talk about with us. And feedback is always appreciated, as we are nothing without you tuning in. And Weebs of the Ring is presented by Anime We Studio. Thanks to our production team for all of their hard work, and thank you once again for joining us. And remember, no stunt grannies were harmed in the recording of this podcast, except I'd probably have to say maybe one of those stunt grannies got a hold of walk-ins, which guess the stunt grannies finally came into play now, so maybe one of those stunt grannies actually got walk-ins. But I'm gonna go figure out what's going on with walk-ins. Maybe I can save him for one of those stunt grannies, and I'll see you guys hopefully on Thursday. We'll be starting up Grappling of the Week. If not, I'll see you on Friday for SmackDown. So peace out, guys.